Representative 39.9% APR variable. Borrow and spend responsibly. The Ocean Credit Card. There for when you need it most. Visit ocean.co.uk.
The price of PPE is rising, with protective masks and gloves now subject to 20% VAT. But at trustedppe.co.uk, we're putting our customers first by absorbing this increase, making our PPE effectively VAT free. Order before 4 p.m. weekdays for same-day dispatch. Rated excellent on Trustpilot.
This quality Virgin Media stock in the base. With our pricing that's an all-time. That's right. Grab our lowest ever price on the bigger bundle. With lightning fast broadband and amazing TV, including Sky channels and BT Sport in 4K Ultra HD. At a low $44.99 a month for 18 months. So are you ready to go? Search Virgin Media Black Friday. New customers. Virgin Fibre areas. Average speed 230 megabits per second. 18-month minimum term. £35 setup fee. Terms apply.
As we all adjust to the latest government guidance, at Tesco we wanted to reassure you that we're doing everything we can to help you shop safely. We're installing a simple traffic light system at the entrance to our larger stores to help manage the flow of customers. Once inside, please stay within the 2-metre markers and make use of the hand sanitizer and cleaning stations. All our colleagues are provided with face coverings to protect themselves and you. We ask that you wear yours as well. Tesco. Every little helps. See tesco.com for more details.
Lorraine here runs her own hot yoga business. She'd rather be working on her warrior post than on her finances. That's why she got QuickBooks. Now she can get paid, track income, and run payroll all in one place. Because no matter how hot the yoga studio gets, running her business is no sweat. Visit quickbooks.co.uk for detail. Intuit QuickBooks.
Indeed knows that for any business, your next step is the most important one, such as hiring someone who can make an impact. Indeed helps you find high-impact hires fast without any long-term commitments, so you only pay for what you need thanks to our flexible payment options. Take that next step with Indeed. Get started with a £100 credit for your first job post and get seen by more quality candidates. Go to Indeed.com/100. That's Indeed.com/100. Terms and conditions apply.
The great British roast. When their buzz is set aside, the TV goes off, the family comes together, and everything stops. For the perfect roast, only Bisto Best Gravy will do. Made with real meat juices for that authentic, rich roasted flavour. Bisto.
Nick for worry and breakfast. Call 0345 6060 973.
It's an interesting thing. So the chairman of the Football Association decides in a matter of hours, up with this he cannot put, and he quits because of a series of inappropriate remarks. He's gone. Yet still in post is the most senior member of the faith, the Roman Catholic faith, Cardinal Vincent Nichols of England and Wales, who who speaks of his shame in not doing enough to protect the innocent victims of child abuse within the Catholic Church. And this went on for years, and effectively the reputation of the Church was put above the welfare of those victims. So he's still in his job, despite, one could argue, years of not doing enough, in expressing his shame, his contrition. I want to misrepresent him there. He stays in his job, despite years of that, but this guy's gone. Compare and contrast. Come back to the conversation in a moment of the vaccines. This is a good point from Ian. Much is being said of Boris Johnson and Matt Hancock having the vaccine. Isn't it more important the vaccine is initially given to those who hadn't had the virus? That is actually a good point, because I did say, but I did also say Michael Gove, and I don't think Mr. Gove said it. Ham in Hampshire, the government doesn't give a damn about elderly in care homes. Let them die. It's obvious the elderly in a controlled environment will be the guinea pigs. Well, they can't get it right, because if they were suddenly just to start, I don't know, injecting 25-year-olds, people say, what about the elderly, wouldn't they? It's not easy, is it, on the ground? Should we come back to our conversation concerning the chat with the English FA? Dwayne in Abbeywood. Dwayne, what are you going to tell me? Good morning.
Morning to you, Nick. How are you doing?
All right, thank you, sir.
Good. I have 2 points. I thought the first point that John made, or the point that John made...
John Barnes, is that, or John McCall?
John Barnes, sorry.
John Barnes, yeah. Because I called you.
I thought that was really powerful about the age thing. I think it should be made clear that when he and people like myself that make that point, it's not that we are excusing their behaviour for using such language of their time, but it's to to understand why they use it. And the second point about, but nevertheless he had to go, I thought was important because he holds such high office. The other point, what really motivated me to call you, John, Nick, was about the two previous callers or three previous callers who were self-identified as people of colour, but yet found themselves talking on behalf of black people. Now, it wasn't explicitly made, but I think it's quite clear that black men in particular largely have the most racial xenophobic violence in football. And yet we find ourselves at times, we have people of colour speaking on our behalf. And this is why black people have a problem with terms like people of colour and black and ethnic minority, because it's us who deal with the burden, it's us who carry the heavy burden of racism and xenophobia.
But just walk me through, so here's a white man, but I'm confused as a white bloke. Kamala Harris says she's a woman of colour, and a lot of people...
That's her prerogative. She's entitled to do that.
Could she call herself a... Well, she could call herself a coloured woman?
I mean, it wouldn't be advisable. I think she'd get a lot of criticism.
Dwayne, you just said that was her choice. So either
she is a black, because she has black heritage. Right. And so she's able to do that. What I have a problem with, I think you had
But do you see how white people can get a bit confused?
Called the services just before me, and she was adamant that he perhaps shouldn't have lost his job, despite understanding that the words that he said using the term colour was offensive. And I couldn't understand that, and the only reason why it made sense to me is because it became abundantly clear that although she was a person of colour, she was not a black woman.
But do you see that people can get confused?
Well, yeah, I think people can get confused, but it's not my point.
No, my friend. No, it's not your fault. It's not your fault, but as I'll quote her again, Meghan Markle, Kamala Harris, they can be women, they can't be coloured women. It's not an open shut case.
I think it's perhaps slightly problematic to use examples of Kamala Harris and Meghan Markle solely because, although yes, they are women of colour, their experience of being a black woman, shall we say, is an American experience, and it's nuanced and different to the UK. Very similar, but different.
Okay. Dwayne, let me move on. Have yourself a good one. Thank you for your input. Nigel in Notting Hill. You're on the radio.
Yes, Nick. Yeah, nice talking to you. There is a lot of confusion over the use of the terms and terminology of people, how people define themselves. I'm defined as a black man, but I don't classify myself as a black man. I don't believe that there is black and white races. This is the confusion, because there's only one race, the human race. And for everybody defining themselves as colours. Colour is not a race.
No.
Black is void of colour, white is void of colour. Even you defining yourself as white, you're not white, you're a person of colour. You've got colour in your skin.
Right.
So let's stop using this misnomer as an argument to define and classify and pigeonhole people into separate races. There's one race, the human race.
Okay. Nigel, thank you. Very compelling argument. Let's see what others make of it. Stuart in Honiton. You're on the radio, Stuart. Good morning.
Good morning, Nick. Love the show. I think language is incredibly important, and I appreciate the definition can be confusing. But where people of colour refer to themselves as people of colour, it's a statement. Whereas when we say coloured, it implies that there has been a change in that colour from one colour to another.
Right.
That's my understanding of that difference.
Okay. Again, you see why there is in some confusion.
I absolutely understand that. Hence, I think it's great you're having a discussion about it, but I think that is my understanding of the difference.
And when it comes to this man who has quit his post, it has to be said not just for this, for comments about female footballers and comments about gay footballers. Was it right that he decided he probably was no longer fit for purpose, as they call it?
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate your comments and agree with them. He was out of touch and he was stupid. I don't think he was malicious.
No,
I don't think he's a racist, but I do think he has to go.
Yeah, I think he probably did, particularly when you take into account that it is meant to be such a dynamic sport. It's worth the upper league's worth £15 billion to this country. You do need, I think, to be on the ball. Shall we finish with that, Stuart? Apologies to Michael, to Kevin, to Susan and others. I'm done for another day. James O'Brien's the other side of the news here on LBC. I'm with you tomorrow. Do remember, of course, at 11 o'clock, I should remind you this morning, that I'm with you tomorrow morning from 7 meantime. Stay safe.
Thank
Thank you, Nick. The time is approaching 10 o'clock, and when you do this sort of thing for a living and you watch in horror as catastrophes unfold that you have failed completely to either predict or properly plot, there is a tendency to try to learn from one's mistakes. So back in March, or possibly even February, when we were broadly optimistic, largely as a result of speaking to a couple of very qualified people, we were broadly optimistic that we were quite well placed to cope with the pandemic. I wonder whether I asked the right people the right questions. Today, I will ask you, if you work within the NHS, how confident you are that you, stroke we, can get this vaccine into the arms of the United Kingdom.
On your radio, on Global Player, and
Play LBC.
Leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
From Global's newsroom at 10 o'clock, the government's announced a 7-day window for university students in England to return home to their families for Christmas. It'll be in place between the 3rd and 9th of December once the national coronavirus lockdown is over. Ministers say after 4 weeks of restrictions, the risk that students will pose will be much reduced. Hayley, who's studying at Manchester University, says she hopes there's a plan in place for the return of students in the new year.
Especially to stop more cases of mental health going up as well. They need to give students and the university better support for online lectures, reducing fees, anything like that. They need to have a proper plan in place for January if they're going to get students on side.
A group of Conservative MPs have formed a rebel group to oppose a further national lockdown in England. They're calling for tougher scrutiny of the advice from government scientists and more information about the impact of the restrictions. Ministers plan to return to the 3-tier system after the lockdown ends on the 2nd of December. The Football Association is beginning its search for a new chairman following the resignation of Greg Clark. He apologised over the language he used to describe black and gay footballers during an appearance before MPs. Guinness has announced it's having to recall its non-alcoholic stout in Great Britain after only recently launching the drink. The company says it's due to concerns of microbiological contamination in some cans. It's urging anyone with cans of Guinness Zero not to drink it. There's been major disruption to rail services after a freight train derailed near Sheffield overnight. All lines through the station are blocked with cancellations, delays and diversions. The problems are expected until at least the end of today. The UK will fall silent for 2 minutes at 11 o'clock this morning in remembrance of the nation's war dead on Armistice Day. People have been encouraged to pause on their doorsteps with COVID restrictions on the traditional memorial services. And this year, more than 100 war memorials across England have been given listed status. Chief Executive of Historic England, Duncan Wilson, says it's particularly important with events being scaled back.
We saw a very limited commemoration in Whitehall at the weekend, and that applies throughout the country now. But I think it makes it all the more important that we protect those memorials so that we can commemorate the men and women who fell in future.
In the city a short time ago, the FTSE 100 was trading up 21 points at 63.18. The pound buys $1.32 and €1.12. And the weather dry and bright for eastern and some central parts, turning wet and windy for many though, with rain in the west moving slowly eastwards through the day, a high of 14 degrees. From Global's newsroom, I'm Simon Conway.
Deck your bowls with sausage roll flavour crisp. Supporting food banks is our goal. Sausage roll flavour crisp.
New Walker's limited edition sausage roll flavour crisps. Grab a pack and support the Trussell Trust this Christmas. Each Walker's sausage roll flavour pack donates 5p to the Trussell Trust. Applies to promotional single and multi-pack sausage roll flavour crisps only.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation with James O'Brien.
Good morning. 3 minutes after 10 is the time. I do hope you're well. Quite a